let's kick off and get right into it. So the declarations page. So we're looking at the H003 policy. What is the declarations page? A couple of things you need to know. One, it's basically going to be the first page of the policy, okay? So like they say, you know it when you see it, right? You get this huge stack of papers and you're going to kind of rifle through the first couple of pages because it's going to be information from the insurance company. Hey, John and Jane Smith, thanks for being a part of our great family, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Get all that stuff out of the way, and then you'll get to the page that says declarations page. And again, that's going to be basically the first part of the policy. Now, what's important about this page, and I would say it's the most important page in the entire policy, is for the information that it has on there. Now, when you look at the declarations page in the context of the rest of the policy, I would say the declarations page is the most important because this is the information that is tailored to the insured, right? Everything else about the policy, which we'll get into, the coverages, the exclusions, the endorsements, for the most part, it's all going to be standard language, right? My policy is going to have the same language that my neighbor's policy is going to have, basically. The difference is going to be the information that's contained in the declarations page, all right? So, what information is that? Well, first off, there's about 4 areas that you want to pay attention to when you pull up the declarations page. The first part is going to be the named insured. So who is that? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the insured under the policy. So you pull up my homeowner's policy, it's going to have my name, it's going to have my wife's name. Something to keep in mind, and we'll get to in a minute, when you go to the definitions page, the named insured definition may be larger, expanded upon than what's listed in the declarations page. That's something that's really important that we need to keep an eye out for. And we'll get to that in a minute when we talk about definitions. Getting back to the declarations page, you're going to have the named insured. Right below that, you're going to have the insured location. That's exactly what it sounds like, okay? Your home, 123 Beechwood Lane, all right? That's going to be listed there. Now, the same kind of tangent I gave about the named insured is applicable to the insured location, which is to say you can go to the definitions page and that insured location may be defined broader than you realize it. So the takeaway from that is at the beginning of any analysis, you want to go to the declarations page. You want to see, number 1, who is the named insured? Number 2, what is the insured location? That is the very genesis of any type of analysis when you're handling these types of claims. All right, it doesn't stop there, but that's the beginning. So, what else is on there? Well, after the named insured and the insured location, you're going to have coverages. And we will go over this, trust me, in depth when we go over the coverages. But suffice it to say, it's going to be coverage A, B, C, and D in most policies. Now, coverage A is going to cover your dwelling, all right? So that's 123 Beechwood Lane. It's your home, all right? It's also going to cover attached structures to your home. Let's say your garage, all right? Now, coverage B, on the other hand, is going to cover unattached structures to your home. Let's say a pool or a fence or a granny flat or even an unattached garage, all right? Now, coverage C is going to cover your personal property, all right? So that's all your stuff. That's your books, that's your suits, that's your dishes, your furniture, the pictures of your dog, your wedding album, whatever. All right, that's all of the personal property that is insured under coverage C. Coverage D is a mouthful. That's ALE, stands for additional living expense, also known colloquially as loss of use. Now, we will get into this in depth, but suffice it to say now that basically what coverage D covers is additional living expenses incurred by an insured due to a peril to the property. And again, I understand that's a mouthful, and we will deconstruct it in a minute, bit by bit, but that's what coverage C is. Now, real briefly, when you're looking at the coverages, something else you want to pay attention to is right across from each coverage is going to be a monetary limit, right? So, for example, you look at coverage A, and you run your eye across the page, and it's going to say $200,000. All right. You go to B, $20,000. You go to C, $50,000. Now, what you need to keep in mind is if there's no monetary amount across from the coverage, arguably there's no coverage, right? So you have to have both, meaning you have to have the coverage listed and then a monetary amount, which is the policy limits, the coverage limits applicable to that type of coverage listed on the declarations page. Absent that, there's no coverage, all right? So, lastly, there's just a few kind of pieces of information about the declarations page you need to be aware of. One is a policy number that usually listed at the top. So obviously when you're making a claim and you want to refer to the policy, you want to refer to the policy number. Okay, anytime you're dealing with the insurance company. You also want to look at the policy period, and I've always seen them 1 year. So it'll say, May 1st, 2018 to May 1st, 2019 at 2:01 a.m. I don't know why they do the 2:01 a.m., but it's always been 1 year. Now that can be important, because if a loss didn't occur within the policy period, well, there's no coverage, right? Regardless of whether you have, the coverage limit and the policy, et cetera, et cetera. If it did not occur during the period that the policy is in effect, there's no coverage for that loss. So that could be important. It's definitely something to be aware of. And then lastly, the declarations page is going to list your deductible and your premium, okay? So that's really, what you need to pay attention to when you look at the declarations page.